We're joined now by Eimear McGuinness, General Manager of Donegal Co-op Livestock Mart, and Ray Doyle, Livestock Services Executive at ICOS. Thank you both very much for joining us. Eimear, on the Mart insurance side, you recently carried out some research over a 3-year period between 2015 and 2018 on about 10 Marts to analyse where their insurance costs are at. What findings did you come across?
There was an increase ranging from about 46% up to 255%. Now, we thought initially that was down to claims over the last 5 years. But the more we looked into it, Marts were contacting us that had increases that had no claims. So I suppose that led us to the Public Finance Committee, and we wanted to see, and there's just, Marts can't afford it. It's just skyrocketing. It's like, I know with our own insurance, we moved from 7,000 and we're now at, I think it's 13,000, 12 or 13,000. There's other Marts have moved from 7,000. Everybody would have been around that range. I know when we have smaller Marts probably in Donegal and some of the bigger Marts around the country. But we all would have moved from that, and some of them have gone up to 22,000. Another Mart was telling me he was 14, now he's asked for 28,000. He has no claims history. So it's just Marts can't afford it, and there's so much more coming on Marts at the minute. So how you have to, all sorts of courses, health and safety. Marts are 50 years old, so we're all the time trying to do work and keep the Mart right and safe for people as they're going in every day. So we can't afford this added cost. And I think another thing that kind of would have, we kind of seen as well when we were looking at it, the insurance companies have a tendency to settle claims because it's more cost effective. And while we understand that, at the end of the day, the Marts are going to pay for that. So that's, I suppose, was my findings initially. And what I had asked from the Public Finance Committee, and why we were brought before it, and FBD was brought in, that would be the main insurance company for the Marts. Why are these costs? We'd like to see why they're increasing. They claim it's because of claims and they're making no money from them. Well, that's fine, but why can't we see this information? The Public Finance Committee did ask them to give this information into them. And to this day, I was speaking to Pierce Doherty last week, just before we came up here, and they have not done so.
Ray, can I bring you in there? Eimear has touched on a few possible reasons for the increase in insurance costs. What do you see as the main reason behind the drastic hikes?
Well, it's just been outlined there. The costs of insurance are simply being passed on to the Marts because of the cost of claims. So you have numerous issues and parameters that's leading into this. The cost of claims in Ireland are seriously out of kilter with the rest of Europe, and most definitely across the water with England. For example, a typical maybe injury in Marts is maybe a broken leg or a broken arm. A broken leg in England will yield probably about 6,000 sterling to maybe somebody who has had that accident. In Ireland here, it's indefinite. That same injury could cost 4 or 5 times that. And that is ultimately the issue. When it gets into the judicial system and the system of the claim, the level of claims in Ireland are extremely high compared to our neighbours. So the problem we have in the Marts is actually the claims, when they get from the Mart and the accident happening out into the system, the claims level is very high. Eimear has touched on the fact that the FBD and other insurers, they tend to settle very quickly. But the problem from the Mart's point of view is we're getting it increasingly difficult to defend livestock mixing in a completely ad hoc way with members of the public. And when you go to court with that particular situation and you have livestock mixing with no regard to health and safety with the injured party, the judges in many of these cases have no concept of a Mart, they have no concept of agriculture, and they simply look at it as you are being negligent by allowing animals to simply mix with people. So that is one of it's multifaceted, this problem. So at one end we have the risk of the accident happening in the Mart, which is what we're trying to achieve now by the measures that have been put in place since the very bad accident in Mohill there some months ago, and perhaps more recently the death in Clogher, even though it's in Northern Ireland, it's still in the island of Ireland. We have to reduce the risk of the accident happening, because what's out of our hands is the actual awards. Now, the Alliance for Insurance Reform has done a lot of good work, and we have met Minister Darcy ourselves to see can we actually get the level of awards dropped or to some way more sustainable levels, because if the awards drop, our ultimate premiums drop. Eimear touched on it there that marts that have had no claims have had their insurance rates rise. Yes, because that's the way insurance works. We've all seen that, you know, Hurricane Katrina or some major event happens across the globe, we all get hit with higher insurance bills, even though it's nothing to do with us and we've never had a claim. So the mart as a particular insurance pot is being affected by some marts having more claims than others. And hence the development of the shutdown, for want of a better phrase, in some marts in the west of the country in particular. This was led by Arrivo, but a lot of the Roscommon marts, etc., now have their intakes shut down. It is spreading slowly throughout the rest of the country because it's the only way to really reduce the risk of the accident happening. Because once the accident happens and it gets into the system, we are powerless to actually the level of claim that's awarded, and ultimately powerless to the actual level of premium that's put back onto us as a sector.
What about the level of cost involved in improving safety procedures in marts? Obviously, safety is paramount to marts, animals and people interacting. There's a huge level of risk, and that's what the insurance companies keep pointing that out. But in terms of the level of cost involved on that side for marts as well,
it's extremely restrictive and prohibitive. Some of the smaller marts will struggle to shut down their intakes because, for example, putting up an overhead walkway, you get no change of €100,000 for a reasonably sort of a medium-sized mart. For a lot of marts, especially this year that's gone by in 2018, they're struggling to break even because of the drop in throughput, and therefore putting in the infrastructure as a cost to overcome their insurance challenges is going to be a juggling act for them. But ultimately, the sector itself cannot afford the level of premiums that's there. Eimear is correct, we cannot afford that. But the only way we're going to actually minimise that or to afford it is to actually put in capital investment or investment with people. Because again, reducing the interaction of people and livestock is the ultimate core of this solution for us. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to spend hundreds of thousands in infrastructure. It could mean we may have to bring on more staff to actually reduce the challenge of the public with the livestock. So there's lots of small solutions that can be enacted. They all cost money. And a sector that's struggling to make money, reasonable profits, it's always going to be a challenge. But I would contend we can't afford to not do something. We can't afford to not live up to our health and safety responsibilities for the members of the public and the people that we employ. So it's going to be, a difficult situation for some marts, especially the smaller ones that are struggling to make money over the next few years. But we're seeing a difference in the country as well. In the north and the west of the country, we have predominantly suckler animals coming into the marts. They are much more unpredictable. And the level of investment required in those marts is going to be higher than in the south and east, where you have dairy bred stock. They don't tend to be as unpredictable. They're easier to manage. Their level of claims actually is much lower than the marts in the west. And maybe Eimear's survey bears that out. The marts in the western seaboard are where most of the suckler bred stock are. They unfortunately are the marts that tend to have the larger claims at the moment because of the unpredictability of the animals and the fact that they didn't have the facilities, the overhead walkways that some of the larger centres did down the south and east.
Eimear, has Donegal Mart have had many claims in the last couple of years, and what are you doing on the safety front in terms of bringing in managing with walkways or cattle handling? How are you improving the safety situation in Donegal Mart?
Right, well, first of all, our last claim would have been in 2012, and that probably led me to where I am at the minute. I argued the claim, I felt it shouldn't have been paid. The assessor came out, they felt it should be fine, there was no need to pay it. But it was paid out because it was more cost effective, and I totally disagreed with that. So that probably got me here and on the chain of the whole insurance. So since that, I haven't had any claims, and that was about, I think it was 12,500, 13,000. What are we doing health and safety wise? Like, as Ray just said, we're a small mart. We have, it's an old building, couldn't really put in a walkway if we tried. So what we would be trying to do is I'm trying to get the cattle in earlier in the morning, so it's more a case of extra staff. stopping people going down the yard once if we get the cattle in earlier, people don't generally come in until about 11 o'clock to view stock and that. So nobody down the yard after that. Now, we have made a start on it there in August time, and we're trying to implement it slowly. It's a work in progress because, trying to get people to change. So, but that's the way I chose to do it. I think they are taking their cattle in. So generally all the cattle's coming in now between 8 and 10 o'clock. People don't come till 10 o'clock. So it has reduced the risk a lot. We get the staff now, all animals, when they're leaving the premises, have to be loaded by a member of staff beforehand. You had customers just loading them themselves, and that was a major problem. So yeah, a lot of change and probably a lot more staff, which will be a lot more costly. But that's the road we've gone. Now,
what are the long-term implications of all these costs building up?
As I was explaining right downstairs, I'm very lucky. We've a separate kind of sideline business as well with the mart, and only for that we would be in serious trouble. The numbers of suckler cattle going through the marts now have taken a drastic decline, especially in Donegal, I think down the west coast. So nobody likes to say a mart's going to close, but inevitably you can't keep spending money. There's so many changes, like this year, 2019, January 2019, there's our new license for the marts have been introduced. Like we went through ours last week. We put on a new roof a few years ago. You're constantly spending money because the marts are so old. Bars break, wear and tear general on old buildings. We put in safety chutes for people to stand into. All these changes have been made. You have your health and safety, GDPR, there's so much money. Continual professional development, we had to do a course on that last week or the week before. You're constantly spending money now, money that you probably don't have, because when your numbers are going down, sheep numbers are increasing, but they wouldn't be as profitable, I suppose, as cattle. So I don't know, and marts are vital to the farming community. It's competition. That's why they were set up in the first place, was for competition. A mart day in any town, the town's thriving. The farmers will spend money in the vets and the restaurants, and they go to the bank to do all their business on a mart day. So I think it's vitally important that they're sustained. When we were in with the Public Finance Committee, I did ask the government that day if these changes, and I understand, as Ray says, we have to protect the public. And there is so many claims, and people are claiming now that never did that before. So we had asked that maybe they'd give us some sort of grant or support or funding to make these changes.
Has there been any developments on that?
No, not on that. No, not on that side of it.
Ray, this is an ongoing issue, and you are engaging with the insurance industry on this. Has there been a level of progress?
Well, yes, there has. I mean, ICOS National Conference is on tomorrow in Killashee, and we have Pat Griffin from the Health and Safety Authority and Kieran Roach from FBD speaking at it, and we have a workshop dedicated to it. But this has been an ongoing problem for the last 3 years at ICOS committee level, because we had an event last November, 12 months, which started the ball rolling on discussions around insurance and health and safety, because the levels of our premiums that were increasing then started this discussion. So the Health and Safety Authority have made it quite clear, indeed, at your venue at the plough match, Pat Griffin publicly stated he was actually going out actively auditing marts now for 2019 to make sure that they are up to the required standards. And we have now a code of practice put in, and additionally to his guidance on marts and lairages for the supervision of loading and unloading, mart staff being clearly identified, prohibition signage being enacted on that if people are told they shouldn't be down the pens, that it's actually enforced. So there's lots of extras now coming, as Eimear has indicated there, in 2019 as well. As regards the insurance industry, of course we've interacted with them. FBD is a long-standing insurer of most marts in the country, and they have a 60-year record there with marts and with farmers in particular. So we have interacted with them. What can we do to reduce our premiums? And the only way we can do that is to reduce our claims. As a sector, an individual mart that have had clean records are still being hit with the marts that are having the problems. So therefore, as a sector, we have to change and move and change our way of business. We're 60 years in business ourselves, Livestock Marts. Eimear's rightly pointed out that they're a vital contribution to every county town in the country. But we can't abdicate our responsibilities on insurance and health and safety. And we now have to change as a sector. 14 marts across the West have changed and have enacted a measure of lockdown and pins and lairages that wasn't there before. And I would think that that is going to spread slowly across the rest of the country over the next few years as being the change that's required to reduce the health and safety issues, reduce the premiums, and hopefully make some mart centres more viable in the future.
Well, we do have a statement from FBD as well, and a spokesperson for FBD said that they strive to keep premiums as low as possible, and when marts pay the insurance premium, FBD takes the risk. Despite the fact that marts are loss-making in that the cost of claims exceeds the premium they take in, FBD continues to insure them. They said the core principle of insurance is that premiums of the many pay for the claims of the few, and this is the principle which FBD stands by in relation to marts. And they said they are striving to bring premiums down while working with ICOS and marts to make sure that safe practices are adhered to. And they said the claims environment in Ireland at the moment is very challenging, and everyone is in agreement on that. Thank you both very much for joining us today.